Good morning to you. Welcome to our morning prayer for Monday, the 22nd of November. And today is the feast day of the author and scholar C.S. Lewis, who died on this day in 1963. And so, as we do on feast days, we pause to celebrate the stories and to learn from the lives of the heroes of the faith, whose collective witness embodies the six practices at the heart of Lectio 365. These are prayer and creativity, justice and hospitality, learning and mission. Today, therefore, we're thanking God for the inspiring example of C.S. Lewis, a much-loved hero of creativity. And so as we enter prayer now, we pause to be still, to breathe slowly, and recenter our scattered senses upon the presence of God. Creator God, who formed us from the dust, breathe into us again. Give us new imaginations to perceive new possibilities today. And so we choose to rejoice in God's creativity today as we join in the ancient praise of all God's people in the words of Psalm 19, verses 1 and 2. The heavens proclaim the glory of God. The skies display his craftsmanship. Day after day they continue to speak. Night after night they make him known. Clive Staples Lewis was born in 1898 in Belfast, Northern Ireland, to a creative and intellectual family. His dad told animated stories, and his nurse entertained him with Irish folklore and fantastical legends. Lewis adored the tales of Beatrix Potter, so at just 5 years old, he began to create his own world, Animal Land. He would often hide away in a quiet attic room and write stories of daring adventures. As a child, Lewis was told to pray, though he wasn't taught much about God. When his mother fell ill, he asked God to help, but sadly, his mother passed away. Shortly after her death, at just 9 years old, Lewis was sent to a boarding school in England. His time there was miserable. The principal, an old reverend, would beat his pupils and insisted that they pray strenuously. The school was eventually closed when the reverend's wife died and he was declared insane. Sadly, by this point, young Lewis was losing what little faith he had, and by 18 years old, he described himself as an atheist. After World War I, Lewis moved to Oxford to study philosophy and ancient history. Lewis loved Oxford and eventually became a fellow at Magdalen College in 1925. By this time, he was a published poet and a popular teacher. He enjoyed being surrounded with like-minded people and found great friends in writer Charles Williams, poets William Yeats, Walter de la Mare, and John Masefield, as well as John Tolkien, author of The Lord of the Rings. Together, this group of literary enthusiasts were known as the Inklings. Lewis was shocked to discover that his good friend Tolkien was a dedicated Christian. He had hoped to be safe from people of faith among his intellectual group. His disturbance grew when atheist friends began to question the meaning of life and eventually defected to Christianity. In his autobiography, Surprised by Joy, Lewis described how God pursued him. You must picture me alone in my room at Magdalen, night after night, feeling, whenever my mind lifted even for a second from my work, the steady, unrelenting approach of him whom I so earnestly desired not to meet. That which I greatly feared had at last come upon me in the Trinity term of 1929. I gave in and admitted that God was God and knelt and prayed. Perhaps that night, the most dejected and reluctant convert in all England. I did not see then what is now the most shining and obvious thing, the divine humility which will accept a convert even on such terms. The prodigal son at least walked home on his own feet. But who can duly adore that love which will open the high gates to a prodigal who is being brought kicking, struggling, resentful, and darting his eyes in every direction for a chance of escape? The hardness of God is kinder than the softness of men, and his compulsion is our liberation. What was our journeys to Jesus like? Were we reluctant converts like Lewis? Let's take a moment to reflect on our own stories and give thanks to God, the God who welcomed us, his prodigal children, with open arms. Who have we been praying for to come to faith, maybe for a long time? God, we persevere and pray for them again today. Whether it takes a week or a decade, make yourself known to them. Be unrelenting in revealing your love. Lewis used his creative and intellectual gifts to help others discover God. He brought Christianity into his lectures and became a well-known author and radio broadcaster. During World War II, he took in 3 children who had been evacuated from the city and shared with them tales of Animal Land. This retelling of his childhood writings developed into The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, possibly Lewis's best known and loved book. In its pages, generations have read of a battle between good and evil and been introduced to Aslan, the lion who laid down his life to save another. And so to our yielding prayer. God, I may not have the talent or intellect of C.S. Lewis, but I offer you the skills and creativity I do have. Use my abilities to help others discover Jesus today. And now, as we prepare to take this time of prayer into the coming day, the Lord who loves us says in Romans chapter 8, verse 28, "In all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purposes." Father, help me to live this day to the full, being true to you in every way. Jesus, help me to give myself away to others, being kind to everyone I meet. Spirit, help me to love the lost, proclaiming Christ in all I do and say. Amen. And so, as we learn from C.S. Lewis, let's use the creativity and the gifts that God has given us today to be a blessing to those around us and draw them, whether it's kicking and screaming, into the presence of God. So have a great day. The Lord bless you. Look forward to being with you again soon. Bye for now.